From the personal logs of Chief Science Officer Blue Blossom of the Galactic Science Academy, date 4728 Universal Standard. Oh my. Stars. You won't believe what happened today, laughs nervously while adjusting recording device. I must document this for posterity, even though my tentacles are still trembling from the sheer audacity of it all. To think that 3 human cadets from that death trap of a planet Earth, would solve our grand black hole conundrum in less than 1 standard rotation. The very thought makes all 4 of my hearts flutter simultaneously. Deep breath. Let me start from the beginning, and I mean the proper beginning. I'm Senior Chief Science Officer Blue Blossom, and I've spent the last 47 cycles studying the Lambda 7 black hole cluster. My predecessors, brilliant minds like Professor Shimmerleaf and Dr. Stardancer, spent their entire careers trying to understand why this particular cluster was, well, misbehaving is putting it mildly. You see, Lambda 7 wasn't following any of our carefully calculated models. The gravitational waves were all wrong. The event horizon kept flickering, which should be impossible. And we'd lost countless probe drones trying to figure out why. The last time we sent a Class 9 quantum probe into the cluster's outer ring, it came back speaking in limericks and insisted it was now the rightful heir to the Andromeda throne. We had to decommission it after it tried to organize a rebellion among the coffee machines. Adjusts recording crystal. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about the day these humans arrived. It started like any other day in the Galactic Science Academy's Lambda 7 Research Division. Professor Starwhisper was giving his usual morning lecture about gravitational constants, the same one he's been giving for 15 cycles. Dr. Moonweaver was arguing with the quantum coffee machine, again, and I was reviewing the latest failed simulation results. That's when they walked in. Or rather, that's when they burst in, because humans don't seem capable of simply entering a room normally. 3 of them, fresh-faced cadets from Earth Space Academy, here on their cultural exchange program. Their names? Jack Lucky Martinez, Sarah Boom Boom Chen, and Marcus Why Not Williams. I still don't understand their obsession with these strange nicknames, but I digress. Lucky came in first, literally rolling in on what he called a motorized office chair, apparently stolen from the administrative section. Boom Boom was next, juggling 3 different tablet computers, while simultaneously arguing with someone on Earth about something called Raid Night. Why Not brought up the rear, calmly sipping from a container marked "Danger Caffeine Levels Exceed Safety Protocols," while reading what appeared to be quantum mechanics theorems, upside down. The entire research team stopped what they were doing. 300 of the galaxy's finest minds watching in horror as these Deathworlders invaded our sacred space of science and contemplation. Professor Starwhisper's lecture about gravitational constants trailed off mid-equation. Dr. Moonweaver dropped her quantum spanner. Even the rebellious coffee machine stopped its usual morning threats. And then Lucky saw a holographic model of Lambda 7. "Yo, that's one funky disco ball you got there." Prolonged sigh. Professor Starwhisper, my most esteemed colleague with 12 doctoral degrees, nearly fainted at such casual disrespect for the most perplexing scientific phenomenon in our quadrant. His eye stalks went pale, a sure sign of academic distress. But then, Boom Boom, I can't believe I'm using these nicknames in an official record, squinted at our equations floating in the air and said, and I quote, "Has anyone tried turning it off and on again?" The silence that followed was so profound you could have heard a quantum particle wave its function. Dr. Moonweaver actually dropped her prized collection of experimental probability matrices. Professor Lightwhisper's chromatophores cycled through every known color in the visible spectrum, plus 3 that I'm pretty sure she invented on the spot. Professor Starwhisper began reciting the universal constants backwards, a sure sign of extreme stress. "No, for real," Why Not chimed in, still somehow reading his quantum mechanics text upside down while now also balancing a pencil on his nose. "This pattern here? It's like when my quantum gaming console glitches. You gotta reset the system." Lucky, who had abandoned his chair and was now inexplicably hanging upside down from a support beam, how did he even get up there, added, "Yeah, looks like the universe's software needs a reboot. Classic IT problem." They were laughing about it. Professor Moonweaver's second head emerged, something that only happens during extreme scientific emergencies, and began arguing with her first head about proper laboratory protocol regarding humans. Professor Starwhisper was now speaking in binary, another bad sign. And then, stars above, Boom Boom pulled out her personal computing device. They call it a tablet, though it bears no resemblance to the ancient medicine tablets they're named after, and started. What did she call it? Ah, yes, running some numbers. Within 15 minutes, she'd created a crude but functional model suggesting that the Lambda 7 cluster wasn't actually malfunctioning. According to her calculations, it was stuck in a quantum feedback loop. "See?" she said, pointing to a series of equations that looked like they'd been drawn by a caffeinated particle accelerator. "It's like when you point two video cameras at each other's screens. The universe is basically stuck in an infinite selfie loop." The entire research team stared at her in horror. Professor Starwhisper's binary babbling increased in speed and complexity. Why not, who had somehow acquired our facility's entire supply of coffee in that short time, suggested we could jump-start it by sending a precisely calibrated graviton pulse into the system. "Think of it like defibrillating the fabric of space-time," he said, while building what appeared to be a small fortress out of empty coffee cups. "Sometimes you've got to shock the system back into rhythm." Lucky, still upside down and now juggling 3 of our priceless quantum calculators, each worth more than a small moon, added that we could use the gravitational wave patterns themselves to surf the pulse exactly where it needed to go. "It's just like that time I went wave riding on Europa," he exclaimed. "Except, with the fundamental forces of the universe instead of water." Professor Starwhisper finally snapped out of his binary trance long enough to scream, "That's not how any of this works." All 7 of his eye stalks were bulging to the point where they looked like they might achieve escape velocity, but embarrassed throat clearing. We tried it. We actually tried their absolutely insane plan, because at this point, what did we have to lose? Just 47 cycles of research and the respect of the entire scientific community. The next few hours were, well, I'm still not sure if they were brilliant or terrifying. Probably both. They rigged up the pulse generator using parts from their personal entertainment systems. Apparently something called a PlayStation 5 has components perfectly suited for quantum manipulation. Lucky's old hover skateboard and, I still can't believe this part, a half-eaten sandwich. "Trust me," Boom Boom said with a wink. "The trace amounts of sodium in the pickle are essential to the process." Why Not had drawn up a series of calculations on the wall, despite our protests that we had perfectly good holographic displays, using what he called a dry erase marker. The equations looked like a cross between advanced quantum mechanics and what he called cheat codes. Lucky, meanwhile, had somehow convinced our maintenance robots to help him build what he called a sick ramp in the middle of the laboratory. When asked how this was relevant to our black hole problem, he just grinned and said, "Style points matter, dude." The actual construction of their device defied every safety protocol in the manual. They called it the Universal Reset Button, or URB for short, though Why Not kept trying to name it the Big Boop. Boom Boom handled the quantum calculations, occasionally yelling things like, "Carry the imaginary number," and "Don't forget to account for quantum swag." While her methods were unorthodox, I couldn't help but notice that her results matched our most advanced projections, plus a few variables we'd never even considered. Why Not was in charge of the physical construction, though his approach to engineering seemed to consist mainly of saying, why not, to increasingly alarming suggestions. He integrated the PlayStation components with our quantum mainframe using what he called the universal adapter, which turned out to be a paperclip wrapped in chewing gum wrapper. And Lucky insisted his main job was to vibe check the universe. This apparently involved doing skateboard tricks near sensitive equipment while reciting physics equations backwards. Hysterical laugh. The truly terrifying part. Everything they did made a strange kind of sense. Their calculations, while unorthodox, were sound. Their engineering, while horrifying, followed its own internal logic. Even Lucky's vibe check seemed to generate useful data about local quantum fluctuations. Finally, after what seemed like both an eternity and no time at all, time gets weird around humans, I've noticed. They were ready. The URB, or Big Boop, the name was still under debate, stood in the center of our main laboratory. It looked like a cross between a 21st century game console, a quantum computer, and something that might have been designed by an abstract artist with a caffeine addiction. "All right," Boom Boom announced, cracking her knuckles in what I hope was a purely ceremonial gesture. "Let's reboot this bad boy." Why Not positioned himself at what he called the quantum control deck, 3 tablets duct-taped together in a triangle. Lucky stood atop his ramp, hover skateboard ready, insisting that the graviton pulse would need some sick moves to totally shred the space-time continuum. The entire research staff watched from behind protective barriers, which the humans had assured us were unnecessary, but we insisted upon anyway. Professor Starwhisper was still muttering in binary, but quieter now. Dr. Moonweaver's 2 heads had called a temporary truce to watch the proceedings. And then... long pause. It worked. By all the sacred equations, it actually worked. The quantum feedback loop broke. The black hole cluster stabilized. All our models suddenly made sense. Centuries of contradictory data aligned perfectly. Lucky did a backflip off his ramp, unnecessary but apparently mandatory, and shouted, "That's how we do it in the Sol system, baby." Why Not just nodded sagely and said, "Sometimes you gotta percussive maintain the universe." Boom Boom was already writing up the procedure on her tablet, pausing only to say, "Can we get pizza to celebrate? I'm starving." Hysterical laughter. Do you know what the best part is? When we asked them how they came up with this solution, they just shrugged and said in perfect unison, "It works in video games." Video games. They solved a problem that had puzzled our finest minds for generations because it reminded them of their entertainment systems. More hysterical laughter. The aftermath has been interesting, to say the least. The Galactic Science Academy is in an uproar. Half the senior staff want to give them honorary doctorates. The other half want to ban humans from all research facilities forever. Professor Starwhisper has taken a sabbatical to reconsider his understanding of the universe. Last I heard, he was learning to play something called Minecraft. Dr. Moonweaver's 2 heads are now arguing about whether to pursue a degree in human gaming theory. 3 other research teams have requisitioned PlayStation 5s for their laboratories. The maintenance robots have started a skateboarding club. And the 3 cadets? They're in the cafeteria right now, arguing about whether they should spend their discovery bonus on something called a mega gaming rig or throw a party for the ages. I need a drink, something strong, perhaps some of that human coffee they keep raving about. Deep breath. Though I must admit their approach has made me question everything I thought I knew about scientific methodology. Perhaps there's something to be said for their chaos-driven innovation. Their willingness to try the impossible simply because no one told them it was impossible. Their distant explosion. Oh no, scrambling sounds. At their back, and they're talking about something called speedrunning the scientific method. End log. More scrambling sounds. Addendum. Note to self, never give humans coffee again. They've just proposed a theory about using black holes as intergalactic Wi-Fi hotspots, and their arguments are starting to make sense. I fear for the future of physics. Second addendum. They've now started a presentation about why teleporters would work better if we think about them like video game respawn points. The terrifying part is that their math checks out. Third addendum. The maintenance robots have mastered kickflips. I repeat, the maintenance robots have mastered kickflips. End log. Definitely end log. Encrypting this file under highest security protocols. Distant sound of another explosion. Sorry, that was us. Don't worry, we'll fix it. Anyone got some duct tape? Also unrelated, but does anyone know if quantum entanglement can be used to make a sick light show? Recording ends abruptly. But perhaps I should explain why this discovery was so monumentally important. You see, the Lambda 7 black hole cluster had been more than just a scientific curiosity. For generations it had been the foremost mystery in galactic astrophysics. Adjusts recording device again. It started 300 cycles ago when the first quantum observation fleet discovered the cluster. Initially, everyone was excited to study what appeared to be a perfectly normal set of 7 black holes. Standard protocol, standard measurements, standard everything. Then the anomalies began. First, it was small things. Probe readings that didn't quite match up. Gravitational measurements that seemed to change depending on who was looking at them. Like some cosmic version of that human phenomenon they call a magic eye puzzle. Professor Starlight, may her tentacles rest in peace, was the first to notice that the cluster seemed to, well, have a sense of humor. Her exact words in her final research paper were, "The universe is trolling us." We lost 17 research teams trying to prove her wrong. The Rigelian Mathematical Corps spent 50 cycles trying to model the cluster's behavior. Their final conclusion? The numbers are making faces at us. Their chief mathematician retired to become a comedy writer. The Centaurian Physics Division didn't fare much better. After 30 cycles of study, they declared that the cluster was clearly running on cheat codes, though at the time, none of us knew what that meant. Shuffling through records. Oh. And let's not forget the infamous karaoke incident, where the cluster somehow converted all our measurement data into something the humans later identified as lyrics from the 1980s. We still don't talk about how the entire xenophysics department spent a month communicating only through something called Rick Rolls. But the humans? Nervous laughter. The humans took one look at this problem that had driven the finest minds in the galaxy to despair and treated it like it was fun. Distant sounds of more chaos. Oh no. They're back. And they've brought... Are those gaming consoles? Yo, Chief B! Lucky's voice echoes through the corridor. We figured out how to use the quantum uncertainty principle to optimize game loading times. Boom Boom follows, her tablet now somehow interfaced with our main quantum computer. Check it out. If we apply the same principles we used on Lambda 7, we can make any game run at 500 frames per second. Why not trails behind them, still reading upside down, but now he's floating? Somehow he's figured out how to manipulate local gravity fields, using what he calls game physics exploits. More crashes. Don't worry about that noise, Lucky shouts. We're just testing if quantum entanglement can improve multiplayer lag. Professor Star Whisper, who had just returned from his sabbatical, takes one look at the scene and immediately leaves again, muttering something about studying human speedrunning strategies. The really worrying part? 3 more human cadets arrived this morning. They took one look at our antimatter containment protocols and said something about it reminding them of Tetris. Nervous laughter. The Galactic Science Academy will never be the same. Half our senior researchers have started taking courses in game design, claiming it's the key to understanding the universe. Dr. Moonweaver's 2 heads are now in agreement for the first time in her career. They both want to learn how to mod reality. The maintenance robots have not only mastered skateboarding, they've started their own YouTube channel. I don't even know what YouTube is, but apparently they have 2 million subscribers. Distant cheering. Oh, stars above. They've just convinced the quantum coffee machine to run something called Doom. Alarm sounds. Don't panic. Why Not's voice carries down the corridor. The quantum foam is supposed to do that, I think. Actually, why not find out? More alarms. Guys. That's Boom Boom. What if we apply the same principles to the cafeteria's food synthesizers? We could make them run Crisis. Even more alarms. Lucky's voice. Dude, check out this sick quantum tunnel I just no-clipped through. I should probably stop them. I really should. But, thoughtful pause, their methods work. They're producing results that our finest minds couldn't achieve in centuries. Sure, their research papers read like video game strategy guides, and yes, they've somehow turned our most sophisticated quantum measurement devices into what they call a RGB gaming setup. But, explosion, followed by cheering. That was awesome! Let's measure the quantum collapse rate again, but this time with sick beats. Deep sigh. Perhaps this is the future of science. A future where the laws of physics are treated like game mechanics to be mastered, where the fundamental forces of the universe are approached with the same enthusiasm as a new high score. Another explosion. We can explain! Also, unrelated. But can black holes do barrel rolls? The really scary part? I'm starting to understand their logic. Just yesterday, I caught myself describing a quantum tunneling experiment as basically just physics parkour. Alarm sounds changed to chiptune music. Sorry, the quantum harmonics wanted to try something new. Final addendum. The Galactic Science Council just issued new guidelines requiring all research proposals to include sections on gameplay mechanics and speedrun potential. I'm not sure whether to laugh or cry. Distant sound of reality glitching. Don't worry. That's just the universe trying to clip through the wall. We got this. More alarms now somehow in perfect harmony with the chiptune music. Hey, who wants to try redistributing quantum probability using Mario Kart physics? Sounds of multiple dimensions being high-fived. Final addendum. They've just submitted a paper titled GGEZ'd How Video Game Logic Solved the Universe. The terrifying part? It's been peer-reviewed and accepted for publication in the Galactic Journal of Theoretical Physics. Sound of reality being spawn-camped. That's it. I quit. I'm going to go learn how to play something called Minecraft. Apparently, it's excellent training for quantum engineering. Recording device makes dial-up modem sounds. Oops, sorry, we accidentally taught the quantum network how to teabag. End log. Encrypting under highest security protocols. Also backing up to something called the cloud, because the humans insist it's meta. Final explosion. Hey, anyone want to see what happens when you try to rocket jump through a quantum superposition? Recording ends with sounds of physics being pound.